One of the examples that Helena brought up was about the nuclear forces, about the expansion of the nuclear forces. For a very long time, really since the beginning of China's, the development of China's nuclear capability, we've had a very good understanding based on their explanations of state policy about what those nuclear forces were for, and we could see that through the nature of the force structure, through the types of systems they had, and more importantly, the types of systems they didn't have, and also procedurally through the way that they ran the force. We're at a point right now where you're looking at a very large expansion of China's nuclear forces and nuclear capabilities, and there really has been no discussion. And so it leaves us to try to interpret what these changes are for, which is inherently destabilizing, I would argue. And I think a very important point along those lines is that we could very easily see that China's force remains similar with the no first use policy that existed since its inception. If you consider into their equations for why they're doing this, you know, the role of U.S. and allied conventional strike capabilities, the role of missile defenses, some of the earlier discussions from the early 2000s about decapitation and about the potential for nuclear first strikes that were coming out of the Bush administration. And those things have really shaped the way China thinks about this. But it's very unclear if those are the driving factors behind why this is happening, or if it's something more. If it's something larger and it's something where the Chinese want to be more forward-leaning with the way that they use their nuclear forces for coercion and also for deterrent purposes. So I think this also really builds off of Helena's very good explanation of some of the things we don't know about the People's Liberation Army. The removal of Li Shangfu very recently is one in a number of these types of removals, and I think we need to go back and look at 2015. You've had 4 members of the Central Military Commission. You very recently had the commander and deputy commander of the nuclear forces. You had a commander who was very heavily involved in the space program, allegedly the commander of the strategic support forces, so essentially their version of cybercom, has not been seen for a while, and there is a lot of speculation in Chinese language press that he has also been caught up in these corruption scandals. And then you've also had very senior members from the PLA who have had a variety of portfolios that have encompassed political work, which is not just political reliability and political loyalty to the party, but also personnel appointments. So this is how they choose people, and we know that's been a very corrupt system over time. But you also have very senior leaders who have been involved in their acquisition programs and their equipment development programs, logistics, and then also now we're seeing people from the operations departments, which is something we hadn't seen in the early stages. So where I think this fits in the broader discussion about China's military capabilities is trying to understand it in the perspective of the institutional change that Xi Jinping has felt was necessary from his time taking over the Central Military Commission. When he first came in 2013, it was very clear from his first day that he was not happy with the development of the People's Liberation Army and the nature of the institutional reform that had taken place. And there are a few strands that I think are very important in this regard. In 2017, at the 19th Party Congress, Xi gave a speech that's called the Will They or Not speech, and he voiced 4 things that he's concerned about, and that was whether or not the military was going to follow the party, so the question of loyalty and reliability, whether or not the commanders were capable of leading that force, whether or not they were proficient enough to fight wars, and whether or not they could mobilize. These aren't the issues related to the technology concerns that they had through the 1990s and early 2000s. This is really the very difficult process of institutional change, and I think that this latest round of corruption allegations really speaks to the difficulties that Xi is dealing with in trying to implement that change.
And